This guy right here has been playing like Kobe Bryant, and he also looks like him. This guy came out of nowhere, and he's been dropping 20 bombs left and right in the World Cup like it's nothing. So this begs me to ask the question, who is he? Well, he's actually a former NBA player, he just looks completely different. Father Time must have hit him like a wrecking ball because this is Rondae Hollis Jefferson, and yes, the man is now bald. Rondae has had a pretty interesting basketball career, going from a 5-star recruit to becoming a role player in the NBA, and then being kicked out of the NBA for playing bad by the age of 25. Rondae started taking basketball serious at the age of 12 because basketball is all he had. His mother worked 2 jobs, and his father wasn't even in his life and was always in jail. In high school, Rondae was a McDonald's All-American. He was one of the best small forwards in his class, and he would lead his high school team to 2 state titles before committing to the University of Arizona. In college, he was shoved to the bench and became the team's 6th man and posted some solid numbers his freshman year. He would end up averaging 9 points and 5 rebounds, and even though those are decent numbers coming off the bench, Rondae was more known for his great D. As a sophomore, he had increased his averages from 9 points to 11 points and 5 rebounds to 7 rebounds. He was also named a Pac-12 All-Defensive Team, and after the season was over, he would declare for the NBA draft. In the draft, the Blazers took him with the 23rd overall pick, but he didn't last long, and the Blazers traded him to the Brooklyn Nets. On the Nets, it was a slow grind to become a competent NBA player. In his first 2 seasons in the NBA, he didn't do much. He would average 5 points the first year and 8 points the next year, and during those 2 years, he played some solid D. However, in his 3rd season, this is where things exploded. He would average 14 points per game and was a big factor in Nets becoming a playoff team. He had improved as a finisher and a passer and was playing the best basketball of his career. But sadly, this is where things start to fall apart. In his 4th season, he had regressed as a player. His defensive capabilities were no longer covering up his glaring holes on offense. His inability to hit any outside shot was a big factor in the Brooklyn Nets declining to pick up his qualifying offer. That, and also they were trying to save as much money as possible for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Heading into his 5th season, he joined the Raptors. Rondae saw a diminished role on a team with a loaded roster full of forwards like Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, and Serge Ibaka. Rondae also started to regress even more. He had flaws in his defense and it wasn't as good as it used to be, and he was still a terrible offensive player. The Raptors didn't even bother to bring him back, and then he joined the Timberwolves preseason team and he was cut before he even played an actual NBA game. Rondae's last shot to stay in the NBA was with the Blazers, my favorite team. He only played the last 11 games of the season with the Blazers, and he only averaged 2 points per game. Nobody wanted Rondae, and he was out of the NBA. But Rondae wasn't going to give up on his basketball career. In the following year, he would sign with the Turkish Basketball League, and he would average 15, 6, and 2, and converted on 33% of his 3-point attempts. Then next year, he signed with the Puerto Rican Basketball League, and put up some crazy stats over there, where he averaged 21 points and 9 rebounds. Then he went down to South Korea, and only averaged 10 points per game, which was kind of a disappointment. After South Korea, he went to the Philippines and took a hard look at the mirror. He didn't like the player he was, and made a couple of big changes to his life. He would become a pescatarian and would eat mainly fish. This would help Rondae lose 15 pounds of fat. This really must have unlocked his inner Mamba mentality, because he would average 30 points per game for the Philippines, and his team went on to win the championship. He was the best player on that team, and was a big factor in them winning the whole entire thing. Now fast forward a couple of months, he starts going viral for his play in the Fiba World Cup, and for looking like Kobe Bryant. A tweet was sent out saying Kobe must be watching this smiling, and it was Rondae Hollis Jefferson's highlights. Rondae was hitting difficult shot after difficult shot. His footwork was insane, and he was really putting Jordan on his back. His most impressive games were versus New Zealand, Greece, and Mexico. In those games, he dropped 39 points, 26 points, 24 points, but the most interesting game was versus Team USA. Against all NBA talent, Rondae dropped 20 points and played some solid D. In an interview after the game, he talked about how difficult it was not to be in the NBA anymore. After being kicked out of the league, it took a toll on his mental health. He was in a rough spot in his life, and now NBA fans want to know the question, Does Rondae Hollis Jefferson deserve a second chance at the NBA? But first, let's take a look at why he wasn't in the NBA in the first place. Rondae was always a plus defender anywhere he went. The advanced numbers showed it, and if you watched the game, he did a great job guarding many players. As for his offensive abilities, he was a decent finisher at one point in his career, but had regressed over the past couple of years in the NBA. However, his lack of three-point shooting was his demise. He was never fully able to develop a decent three-point jumper when he was playing in the NBA. In 2023, the three-point shot is the most important shot in basketball. You got guys like Rudy Gobert trying to add a three-pointer to his bag this late in his career because he clogs up the paint too much. Rondae is a 6'7" wing. He's only 28 years old, so still very young, but sadly, he just has never been able to fix his jumper. In this year's World Cup, he shot 20% from 3. In his time overseas, he was never an above average shooter. Even though he's still a poor shooter, I'm a guy who believes in second chances, and I would not be surprised if a team like the Lakers or the Suns gave Rondae a 2-way or a 10-day contract. But I think Rondae would be making a huge mistake going to the NBA. Rondae was a mid-range assassin in the World Cup. In the NBA, the mid-range shot is completely dead. There's only one guy on the top of my head who's a poor three-point shooter and is the king of the mid-range, and that guy is DeMar DeRozan. A superstar, not a role player. Role players simply do not take tough middies. So instead of Rondae going to the NBA, I think Rondae should go to the EuroLeague. Each year, we see more and more former NBA players going across the pond. This year alone, we saw guys like Kemba Walker, Jabari Parker, Herman Gomez, Bo Cruz, and that doesn't even scrape the bottom of the barrel of NBA players moving to Europe. In Europe, Rondae would get a lot more touches than if he was in the NBA. He would be able to play his own way. The EuroLeague's emphasis on the three-point shot is a lot lower than the NBA. As for the money, it would most likely be a little bit higher if he played in the EuroLeague. He would be out of the spotlight if he went to Europe, and let's be honest NBA fans, we can get pretty toxic, and if he played bad, we would have probably made fun of him. If Rondae plays well in Europe, and even becomes an average three-point shooter, then I think he should take his talents back to America, and who knows, maybe he'll become a solid role player again.